Hello, my friends. AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink. Welcome back to my face and my card making space. And as the title of the video says, more postage collage cards. For those that might be new or unfamiliar, a couple years ago, Waffle Flower released the Postage Collage Die set. And in that time, in the last couple years, however long it's been, they've released a whole bunch of add-on stencil sets for all the themes you can imagine. So there's been stencil sets, there have been little stamp sets with different themes, cancellation marks, etc., etc. There has been other sizes released of the wafer dies, and yeah, there's been a bunch. I have a link in the description box below the video of a collection I've done of all the products, just to kind of keep track. It helps me keep track too. And I've got them all kind of in the order they were released, so you can check that out. And then at the very end of this video, I do have a playlist of all the videos I've done so far using the various postage collage products. So I put that all in a playlist. And then for the February 2025 release, there are two new sets. One is specifically postage collage, and it's butterflies. This release... So again, I'll have a link to the release in the description box below. I predict it's going to be very popular. I was really excited when I saw it. But yeah, there's one that is specifically postage collage, and I used it. And then there's a second one that is a dual purpose. So it works with the postage collage die set, but it also can just create a background. It's the Postage Collage Spring Breeze Stencil is what it's called. And I'm kind of intrigued by this concept that you can use it in both ways. So I've talked about this before. I really love having like add-ons to previously release, stamp die sets, etc. And then being able to like use it over and over again for different themes and like new ideas, yada yada. I'm like here for it. And then having things that are like more than one purpose, can be used in more than one way. I'm like, yes. So I used like both stencil sets. I made several cards. Once I got going, I couldn't stop. I was having fun. So, like I said, I'll have a link to the new release in the description box below the video. I'll have a link to the postage collage collection, and I update it every time there's, new things released to it. And then I'll have a link to all my supplies that I used in the description box below. Everything will be listed and linked, everything I used. My links are affiliate links. That just means that if you click on one of my links and end up placing an order, I get a little kickback from that at no extra cost to you. It is what helps pay the bills, keeps my heaters going, enables me to keep bringing out content. And I think that's it for the housekeeping. Oh, other than these cards, find them on my Instagram. That will also be linked below. I always link my social media. I have a little giveaway attached to that, but it's only on my Instagram. So check that out too. So that is it for all the housekeeping. Let's get into making the cards. So the first thing I did was I die cut some white cardstock using the Postage Collage wafer die, the original. And this die cut's slightly smaller than an A2 size. It's meant for A2 cards. And like I said in my intro, there's other sizes available of postage collage die sets, like ones for 5x7, slimline, etc. Those ones, however, do not have all these coordinating stencil sets, but you can use them with anything. So after I did my die cutting, I stuck them to my big Waffle Flower grip mat. And these first ones I'm using the Postage Collage Butterfly stencil, which I know a lot of you are going to be happy over this one because I did a video, I think it was at some point last year, with the 5x7 set, and I just used butterfly stamps. And that stamp set was also from Waffle Flower, but it was discontinued. It was retired like not long after I posted my video, of course. And I've had so many people reaching out about like butterflies with the postage collage set. So this is what I meant when I saw this release. I was like, oh yes. I'm like, so many people will be so happy. And I did tell Nina at Waffle Flower, I was like, excuse me, we do also need stamps. Just, that would be wonderful. Okay, thanks, bye. So she took note of it. So because you can never have too many butterflies, in my opinion. It's like snowflakes, hearts, all the things. It's like you can never have too many. So, okay, back to the stenciling. This is a 3-layer stencil set, and I'm using my Shader 1 Plus brushes, the little pastel ones. Honestly, you could just use the normal size brushes for this. I was planning on doing like more, blending and doing, more than one color per stencil, but in the end, I just kept it kind of simple. So I'm using Concord and 9th inks for all the colors. So I use Lilac and Fig ink for the layers of the butterflies. And then for these details, I'm using the Lisa Horton metallic gold ink and a little Ranger tiny blending tool to just push that ink onto there. I don't like using brushes with metallic inks. Just it's the nature of the ink, the formula. I find brushes just kind of smear it and don't really like deposit the actual metallic pigments. So this is where a little sponge comes in handy, or the Waffle or the Picket Fence paper pouncers. Perfection. I need to like get a dedicated little pouncer specifically for my metallic ink. So anywho, pounce that on. Fabulous. Off camera, I did heat set the metallic ink just to get it to fully dry and, set. And then my favorite part, I don't know why, and I've talked about this before, I really like stamping all the like denomination and cancellation stamps when I do these types of cards. It's just fun. I like being messy with it. I purposely don't do it perfectly. And for these ones, I stuck with the purples. I'm using a very dark purple for this. This is Concord and 9th Eggplant ink. And I'm using the original Postage Collage stamp set. Like mine's already getting like pretty stained because I use it so much. And yeah, just stamp little denominations, little cancellation marks, just like so. Love it. Love it. I don't know why. It's just fun. So that was the first set, and we'll circle back to it in a bit. This is the other one I was telling you about, the other stencil set, that this one will do a background, but it also works with the Postage Collage. So this is the Postage Collage Spring Breeze stencil set. And this one, you can't really see it on camera, but the stencils have etch lines to directly line it up with an A2 panel of cardstock. So 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. So that's what I have stuck to my background. And then each stencil just lines up with that cardstock. And it's simple. And then you just go along. So I used the same purple inks. I did the Lilac and Fig for the butterflies. And then for this flower layer, I used Sweet Pea ink. And then I went in with a little bit of Wildberry. So this time I am doing dual colors on like one thing. So I went in with Wildberry, just light-handed, and just added a little darker areas here and there. And then for the greenery, I'm using Oceanside, and then I'll add a little bit of Peacock ink. And again, these are all Concord and 9th inks, and using my little Waffle Flower Shader 1 brushes. And very much jewel tones with this. I was keeping everything in a very like similar color palette, same inks. If you guys could have seen my desk, I think I might try and post the image on like my Facebook page or something. I really was down to like this little square of workspace. I had stuff piled up everywhere, just ink pads and brushes and stamps and stencils and scissors. And who doesn't though? Really? Who manages to keep a clean crafting area when you're actually crafting? Anywho, final layer, I did the same thing and added the gold metallic ink. And it creates just this background, just a pretty background. Love it. In the shine of the metallic ink. So fun. So for my second panel, I've got an A2 piece of cardstock. And then this time I'm using the blocks stencil from the, this is like the original Postage Collage coloring stencil set. This is one of the first ones that came out. There is just this blocks stencil available like on its own. I don't know where mine went. It grew legs and walked off, but this one has it. It just also has that little postage type border around it, which doesn't matter. But I need to find that other stencil because that means you can do this with like any stencil set really. So I put that one down first, and then I'm doing the exact same thing with the Postage Collage Spring Breeze stencil, except this time, because that block stencil is down first, it's going to create those borders around everything. And you'll see, I'll show the two side by side after I've die cut them. This just creates that white border where, the edges of the postage stamps would be. So just that slightly different look. So that's how you can use this Postage Collage Spring Breeze stencil, like 2 ways, but in fact more than 1 way, more than 2 ways, really. Because you could just not die cut it with the Postage Collage wafer die and just use it as a background as well, or cut it up in other ways. It's, sky's the limit, really. But I have the stencils layered like this. I use tape to hold down the layers of the Postage Collage Spring Breeze stencil because I've got, you know, one stencil on top of another stencil. It needed some way to stay in place. And then I just press down the areas with my fingers because I've got the 2 layers of stencils to make sure that I'm getting like the ink through the stencil onto the cardstock. And then remove that. And see, now I've got all of those borders around everything. And then so you can see one's a background, one's got the borders, and then both of these I'm going to die cut with the Postage Collage wafer die. So if you just leave it as the full background, you can just see where it lines up. Like the butterflies just are placed to fit within those parameters of the Postage Collage wafer die. So I die cut that panel, and then I'll do the exact same thing with the second panel. And just, again, just a slightly different look. I like both, really. Can always have options. Can't go wrong. So pop these out of the wafer die. And with this one, with the Postage Collage, like when the pieces stick in those little holes, I just give it a good whack on my like garbage can, and it pops them, most of them out. And then I'll also use my little Spellbinders like bristle brush and run that through, and we're good to go. So there's the two backgrounds in the 2 different ways. Both are great. It's just fun to like kind of change up the looks. And then of course, cancellation marks, I can't leave well enough alone. They need to go on there. I like seeing some of the other makers that have restraint and like don't add it or just use them in different ways, etc. It always intrigues me. I'm like, how did you not stamp all the cancellation marks and then add splatter? Because of course I'm going to add splatter. You guys know what I'm going to do. So speaking of, after I'd got these backgrounds stamped, splatter, I purchased this little Spellbinders pack of 3. They partnered with Yasutomo to do this little 3-pack of watercolors for splattering. Love it. So of course I used the gold. And I just put a little bit of water in that little pan. And then you got to work it up really good. Work it up with your brush to mix up all of that metallic goodness. And did I need to get this little set? Do I have like 50 options for splatter, specifically gold splatter, etc.? Yep. But I was curious, and this is nice too. It's another option. Nothing wrong with having options. So I put the backgrounds into my splat box. I used my fan brush, worked up that watercolor, and then splattered this all over these panels. So move those out. I'm going to add the other ones that I did at the beginning. Add the splatter to those. You could always stop here. Am I going to? No, I'm going to do more splatter. This time's a custom mix because I've been kind of fixating on that as well lately, and it's been fun. So for my custom mix, I used the Eggplant Concord 9th ink, very dark purple. I add a bit of white gouache to my palette, and then I dip my fan brush in a little bit of water and then mix all of this together. So I will be making my own custom purple mix of a splatter. Love. And yeah, I decided not to go with black. I did this instead because since I stamped all the cancellation marks in purple, like usually I do everything in black. Like I stamp the cancellation marks and then I add black splatter, you know, but it's fun to mix it up. And this just is a bit more subtle and it's fun. So added those, added all the splatter, cleaned everything up. And then off camera, I die cut cardstock, which was also Concord 9th cardstock in colors that match. I'm using, this first one is the butterfly focal die. Another thing I was loving. And there is a butterfly focal stencil, which you see me using. And the cool thing about the stencil is obviously it works with the wafer die. It will, and you'll see me, it'll highlight all those like pierce details, but it also can work on its own. And I will show that because I'm going to use the stencil on the insides of all my cards. So again, keeping everything like consistent. So I used Lilac cardstock for the butterflies, and then I'm using the exact same inks. So I'm starting with Lilac ink, and I'm not filling in the whole stencil. I was keeping it more concentrated towards like the base, like towards the body of the butterfly, and just blending that light ink. And then there's the stencils for the wings, so the 2 large openings for the top and the bottom of the wings. And then there's 2 detail portions of the stencil, and then there's the body, which you could just stencil on, but the wafer die does have the separate body, which you can see there because I die cut it from matte gold cardstock, of course. So for the details, I used Fig ink first, so the medium shade of ink. And then the final detail, I'm going to go in with Eggplant, which is significantly darker. And because it layers on top of some of the other details, I just use a lighter hand with my brush so that I don't completely cover up that Fig ink on some of the details. So kept working my way around and just adding all these details. This, I keep talking about, but it's true. There's something just really satisfying about stenciling. Every time I peel off the stencil, I'm like, yes, love it. And then it's the same thing. The next time I peel it off, yes, love it. So kept working my way around, filling in all of these butterflies with these inks. And then I just glue the gold body to the die cuts with Craft Achy glue. And yeah, I use Simon's matte gold cardstock for the bodies. So it's just that pop of metallic. Love. And then I've got the flower focal die. This one does not have a coordinating stencil. I just used the same ink. So I die cut it, the florals from Sweet Pea cardstock, and I'm using at first Sweet Pea ink, which if you let it fully dry, it doesn't show up very much because the same color ink on the same color cardstock just kind of blends into each other. But I just did that as my base, and then I went in with that Wildberry ink, the much darker pink shade, and blended that as well. And then for this one, I did the same thing. I used the flower centers. It's a separate little wafer die, and I die cut that from the matte gold cardstock and just adhered that onto all of the flowers. And then the leaves I die cut from Oceanside ink, and then I'm applying Oceanside ink. Or I die cut them from Oceanside cardstock, and I'm using Oceanside ink first, and then I'll go in with the Peacock ink, which is a lot darker, and just dragging that from the bottom of each leaf upwards. Because like, look at the dimension it creates. I love it. And then of course I'm going to splatter these as well. I wasn't gonna, and then I'm like, of course I'm going to. Why? Oh, I don't even know why I like lie to myself. Like, oh, you can avoid it. No, I'm gonna do it. So put all the pieces in my splat box, and then use that little pan of gold watercolor. Added more water to it. Used my fan brush and just heavily splattered all of these pieces, and then just set them aside and let them dry. And then for the assembly, I'm not going to show the assembly of every single card because I kept the cards themselves pretty simple. I used, this is the new stamp set. This is the Paper Hug Sentiment Set. Love it. Love the mix of fonts, everything. I had white heat embossed them onto black cardstock and then used the coordinating wafer dies to die cut them. And that's what I'll use on all my cards. And then I pulled out an oldie but goodie favorite. I don't have a link for this. This ribbon I have had for over a decade now. I've mentioned it in past videos. I got rid of most of my ribbon, and I can say now, at this point right now, because people have asked if I regret it, and I used to say, no, don't regret it at all. I had to do it. I regret getting rid of all my ribbon. I wish I hadn't. I had a lot, and I miss it. I kept some, specifically these full rolls of this is AmyR's ribbon. The polka dot stuff. Some of you that have watched me for, again, over a decade, you guys will remember this stuff. I used to use it all the time. I have many colors of it. So I pulled out this black and white ribbon, and you saw I just cut apart a little bit of the Postage Collage background and then just slipped the ribbon through that. I kind of do the same thing when I use baker's twine with this, and just ran it through, tied it in a bow, and we're good to go. So I'm going to add the butterfly to this one, and I just put foam squares under the wings and then glue under the body. So the body is like flat to the background, and then the wings are just slightly popped up. And I popped on my sentiment, and I did that on another one of the backgrounds. And then this is where I decided all the insides of my cards, I'm just going to add this butterfly. I'm not going to stamp any sentiments, add anything else. I'm just going to blend this butterfly. So this is where I finally used my brain and pulled out my bigger waffle flower brushes because it's faster. And I'm using the same inks, Lilac, Fig, and then for the body, I just used the eggplant ink, the darkest purple. Could have used the gold, but just went with the purples. Just kept it simple. So I added that to the inside of each of my cards. All of my cards are A2 size, so 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. 4 of them are landscape orientation with the Postage Collage, and then one of them is going to be portrait, which I'll show in a second. So for this background, I used the flowers and leaves and kind of did the same thing, just adhered them into place. This one I skipped the ribbon on. I only added a ribbon to a couple of them. And adhered the florals and the leaves with craft tacky glue, just tucking them in. And then another one of the sentiments with some foam squares. Just pop that into place. So those cards, I end up adhering to color cardstock and then adhering to my white card bases, which I'll just show at the very end because I just, again, kept them simple. I didn't do anything like crazy. For this final card, I pulled out the Sweet Plaid panel die. I've used this in many videos. I love this wafer die because it's got all that stitching detail. So I die cut that from white cardstock. So this will just create like a subtle, like textured background. And adhering it directly to my card base with the craft tacky glue. And then I just put my big acrylic blocks on top of it to let it dry. And then I adhered a couple of the flowers and the butterfly and then the sentiment. And then as my final bit of embellishment on the cards, I used some of the waffle flower candy dots and just grabbed colors from the pack that went with all the colors I used on these cards. So these are just peel and stick because I've got adhesive on them. So I just stuck them into place. And I've done the same with the other card fronts as well. And once all of those were adhered, these cards were complete. So I did 2 with these purple backgrounds. And then that ribbon, splatter, and the little bit of the little candy dot embellishments. And then, yeah, the stenciled butterfly on the inside. These were fun. And then this one, I've got the butterfly die cut that I showed. Love it. Love it. And then the other 2 cards with the Spring Breeze stencil set. So one I added the butterfly to and the ribbon and one of the sentiments. And then the other one was the one I had added the florals and leaves to. And yeah, the purple ones I used Concord 9th Eggplant cardstock behind it. And then this one is Peacock cardstock just to make everything kind of pop, but still keep everything within those same colors that I was using on everything. And then this final one with just the butterflies and florals. And that's it. So like I mentioned in the intro, I'll have links to all the things in the description box below the video. And then I'll have that link to the playlist in the end screen at the very end. So you guys can check all that out if you're interested. As always, thank you so much for hanging out with me, for thumbs upping and commenting. It helps a ton and I very much appreciate it. Subscribe if you haven't. I'd love to have you. And I will see you all very soon in the next video. Bye. Thank you so much to my amazing Patreon supporters. For anyone that might be interested in joining my Patreon community and supporting me, the link to my Patreon is in the description box below the video. For everyone else, as always, thank you all so much for taking the time to watch my videos, for thumbs upping, commenting, subscribe if you haven't, I'd love to have you. And here's a couple other videos for you to check out in case you missed them. Bye!